I think we'll start. My name is Amy Volz. I'm Executive Director of Do It Green, Minnesota. This is our 15th year for our Green Gifts Fair event and our very first virtual event. We've learned a lot. We have our great Shanti here, who is our tech person for all of our Zoom events, and she trained me in. And Kristine, our other team member, is with us. She's going to be presenting later today too. So we have 3 presenters for you guys. We're focusing tonight on zero waste holidays and beyond. So a lot of the things that the presenters are going to share with you will give you low waste tips for the holidays, but they're also things that you can apply in your everyday life and hopefully make a long-term change. So we have Colleen Hetzel, who is with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and she is a food waste expert. She works on sustainable materials management at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and one of the programs that she works on is the prevention of food waste, of wasted food. So tonight she's going to talk about how to reduce our food waste during the holidays and beyond, and she's also going to discuss greenhouse gas emissions associated with the food system, including food waste, and how we can do small things that can add up to make a big difference. So Colleen, if you want to just go ahead with your presentation. We'll have about 10 minutes for each presenter, and you guys can submit questions throughout the entire presentation, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks, Amy.
Sure. Thanks for being here.
Okay, and hopefully in just a second you will all be able to see my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As Amy said, I do work on wasted food, and just a quick thing before we start, definitions are kind of important, and so I wanted to just kind of go over a quick definition before I start. For me, wasted food is food that would have been eaten, but for whatever reason, it doesn't actually end up being eaten at all. So food waste, which is what a lot of my colleagues work on, is kind of that food that ends up as composting. It can be, you know, for some people, the banana peel or the orange peel or bones and things like that. So that is what we refer to as food waste. But wasted food is food that otherwise would have been eaten, but for whatever reason, many different reasons, it ends up not being eaten and becomes wasted food. So first, let's start out by talking or saying, why are we talking about wasted food? For just a little bit of background, if you're like me, when you, just for a little bit of background, I wanted to show you the life cycle of food. Uh-oh. Sorry, my computer's glitching on my end, but hopefully you're not seeing that on your side. This is the life cycle of food, and as you can see, in the life cycle of food, there are different energy inputs across all of the different stages. So let's look at the production phase, which is that top phase, and just kind of dissect that a little bit more. When you are growing the food, you're having energy inputs associated with fertilizer, water needed to grow those crops. There's a lot of energy for all the different farming equipment that needs to grow those crops, all the way from planting it in the ground till the very end where you're harvesting and drying a lot of the food before it can actually then be delivered to the food processor, which is the next stage in the life cycle of food. So all across the way, you're going to be having those energy inputs and outputs. And so when you add all of those together, it is a lot of energy that is going to be needed for the entire life cycle of food. So, sorry, it's just not showing up for me on my computer the right way. I'm apologizing. So why are we concerned about something like this? Because Americans actually waste 400 pounds of food per person each year, or between 30 and 40% of the food that we grow every year is wasted. So kind of an example that I use, that would be the equivalent of me going to the grocery store, buying 10 bags of groceries, walking that out to my car, and on the way, 4 of those bags of groceries just drop out of my hands, and I don't turn around to pick them back up because I just assume they're going to be wasted and I don't care. And that example seems ridiculous, and it really is. And it doesn't happen in a way that we see it that in our face. And it might not even be, people on this call who I'm sure are very environmentally conscious and hopefully don't waste that amount. But overall, on average, that is what Americans waste. And so it adds up to be a very large problem and something that we really need to do. And so in 2012, the Natural Resources Defense Council had done a report that illustrated some of the different waste that were happening from the food system. And then again did it in 2017. And here are some of the great graphics that they came up with that illustrate exactly how much food is going to waste in the United States each year. So it's 2.6% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are annually produced in the United States. It's also the equivalent of $218 billion that we spend on food that goes to waste. So those are just two of them that I think really illustrate the really large problem that it is that we have surrounding food that is grown every year and then ends up not being eaten. Both that environmental impact as well as that economic impact. And then there is also a social impact because there are several Americans that are also food insecure. And there's no reason for us to be growing food that ends up just going straight into the trash can when all three of those things we can really can be better for the environment, better for the economy, and also we can help feed people who otherwise are food insecure. So a logical next question might be, well, where is all of this food getting wasted? There are a lot of experts that came together and did some research to find out where that was. And if you're like me, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be wasted more on the farm, at the farm level, because we have a lot of natural disasters. It can be difficult for us to pick that last potato, and if that all adds up, then maybe that's where a significant portion of the food is being wasted, but it's actually not. So you see that 1 million tons that's being wasted, that's at food processing centers. But then you see those two larger portions of food that's being wasted. That 40% or 25 million tons of waste, that's food being wasted at the retail level. So it's supermarkets, it's restaurants, it's cafeterias, institutional kitchens, catering centers, things like that. The actual largest portion is the individual. So when you think about it, it does end up making sense because there are so many individuals. So we are going to add up to a very large impact overall. But I think something else to note is that it can be difficult to try to work within just one industry to try to reduce waste. But when you start to think about trying to work with all of those individuals to try to prevent food from going to waste, it becomes a lot more difficult, especially because each person is wasting food for very different reasons, and that's coming out in research as well. So because most of you are individuals, I thought I would focus on that. And I don't want it to be all doom and gloom. I did want to talk about some really great tips that we have that can help. They're free and they're easy to do. They're just behavior change things that we can do at an individual level to start reducing the amount of wasted food. So the first thing is to plan ahead. Before you go to the grocery store, if you look at recipes that you're going to be making and you realize that you need an onion for one recipe, but it only calls for a 1/4 cup, well, that's not, a full onion. So maybe you want to pick another recipe to make that's going to take the remainder of that onion so that you don't have to throw any of that onion away. It's buying what you need, and that means that not only do you plan ahead and kind of stick to your list so that you're avoiding those impulse buys, but it also means that oftentimes we think because it's buy one get one free, that that's a better deal. But if you're never actually going to use that other, that second, whatever it is, loaf of bread before it's going to go bad, not only is it not a good deal, but it's also not a good deal for the environment as well. So just trying to be conscious about staying away from some of those tricks that really aren't going to result in you getting the amount of food that you really want. It's storing things correctly. Things like avocados and bananas, they actually ripen each other if stored together. So if you already have a ripe banana and you already have a ripe avocado, you don't necessarily want to have them in the same area together, because then they go bad quicker. And then it might be that you don't want to eat them because they're both, past the ripeness that you enjoy. It's also storing things in see-through containers, because people are much more likely to eat food if they actually see what's in it. For whatever reason, we tend not to want to open up every container to see what's inside before selecting what we want to eat. So storing things in see-through containers makes a huge difference as well. And then cooking the right amount. And this is something that one of the behavior changes that really resonated with me is that I like to try new recipes. But the problem is I was trying the entire recipe amount that it called for. If I'm not sure I'm even going to like it, there's absolutely no reason that I can't cut that recipe in half and only make half of that to see if it's something that I actually like, so that I don't end up having to either force myself to try to eat something that is not really my favorite thing. Instead, I can just have to force myself to eat it that first time. Eating leftovers or storing those leftovers in a great location is another tip. We often, as Americans, don't use our freezer as often as we should, and that also helps with cooking the right amount too. If you're, somebody in a household who eats smaller portions, or there aren't as many people, it's easy to make a full recipe and then also store one in the freezer for later, or use your freezer for lots of different things. I know that we don't often go through an entire loaf of bread, so I will put some of it in the freezer and then get that later in the week so that it doesn't go bad on the counter. And then that final portion about recycling or composting, it is very important. And I know that I mentioned at the beginning with the definitions, wasted food versus food waste. I don't want to discourage people from composting. I think composting is absolutely fantastic and it's really good for our soils. But I do want to encourage you to save composting for that food waste, for stuff that you otherwise would not be eating. Because when you think back to that life cycle, all of those resources have already gone into making sure that that food is there for you to eat, and you can't get those resources back by composting it. Really what you're able to get back is removing that disposal piece, but all those other things have still already been generated. So that's why it's so important for us to focus on those prevention pieces first. And then the last thing I wanted to do is to go to this website quickly. And it has some really great tips. And I know that today my talk was super quick and you might not even remember all of it, but a lot of this information is on this website called Save the Food. And relating to the holidays, there's this great tool called the Guesstimator. And I know that this year we're not having probably a lot of guests into our home, which means that we really are going to want to focus on those portion sizes so that we're not overproducing based on, maybe what we had last year with several more people in our homes. And this Guesstimator tool is fantastic for really trying to figure out exactly how much food you should prepare. It walks you through how much you need of every item, and it will actually kind of tell you, how many different servings you might want to have overall before maybe you're making too much for people. So it's a really great tool. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out on this site before I run out of time is this recipe portion, where you can go and when you have gone to the grocery store and you've picked up things and you weren't able, like, so you picked up an onion and a cabbage and carrots and you didn't use all of them for one recipe, you can go into this recipe section and you actually put into a search function and say, this is what I have. Are there any recipes that you can recommend that would have these different ingredients that need to be used up, so that you can find a new recipe to actually use those ingredients to prepare something. So those are two I wanted to quickly highlight while I still had time. And I think that I am now out of time. So thank you very much. And let's go on to the next presenters.
Thanks, Colleen. That was really great and condensed information. You did an awesome job. And that's a good point to be thinking about. We're going to have to be cutting our recipes down this year for Thanksgiving. We just can't have large groups of people this year together. Another thought is, if you do end up making the same amount, is maybe sharing with your neighbors or people who can't cook, or doing like a rotation delivery. So everyone makes their specialty dish and then you rotate, although that's some emissions with the driving, but everyone could share their favorite dish with each other if you still make the same amount. So that's great. Thank you for all those tips. And we'll put that website or those websites that you shared. Is there one link we can share, Colleen, or should we just add those last two websites on after the event?
Yeah, it is. I saw Kristine put it in. It is Save the Food. And that's actually, if you Google it or just type it in, it will come up. And it has not only that, but it also goes through a lot of the other tips that I talked about as well. They made that, it was made through the Ad Council and EPA. We all generated it together, and it has great tips.
Great. What a great partnership. Well, thank you, Colleen. And if you guys have questions, just start plugging them in and we can ask them at the end. Our next presenter is Kristine. She's with Do It Green, Minnesota. She's been with us for 6 years. I asked her tonight because I actually wrote down 5. I couldn't believe it was 6. She focuses a lot on our low waste programming, including education, presentations, and event support on topics such as our carbon footprint, clothing swaps, and futoshiki cloth gift wrapping. So take it away, Kristine.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to get my screen up first. All right. Can you see the PowerPoint? Yeah, okay. All right, all right. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my screen so I don't look at myself while I'm doing this. Hold on just one second. Oh, maybe I can't do that. All right, never mind. So play from current slide. Okay. All right, so I think maybe it's clear to everyone why we would be talking about alternative gift wrap when we're talking about low waste holidays. It's fairly obvious that conventional gift wrap is single use and disposable. I remember holidays growing up as a kid. My family's living room floor would be a sea of red and green, beautiful wrapping paper, bows, tags, ribbons. And I remember we'd gather them all up and we'd put them into garbage bags and take them out to the trash, and that would be it. And if you think about that, times all the homes who celebrate in December, it adds up to a lot of trash. In fact, it's 4 million pounds of wrapping paper that end up in the trash every year. And it's not just the trash accumulated that's a problem, it's also the energy that goes into producing all of these products and all the resources, like the trees that go into the wrapping paper and things like that. Luckily, we're able to avoid this waste very easily with alternative gift wrap. So I have a couple examples here. The easiest thing to do with alternative gift wrap is to start with newspaper. It makes a really great footprint for your wrapping paper. So here we have one example where you see they started with newsprint, and then they've added what looks like some upcycled pieces. And you know, I think when people are talking about alternative gift wrap, a lot of times you might think it's really boring. Maybe it's just not colorful enough, not festive enough, but there's actually so many ways to dress it up and make it more interesting. And let's see, the next one. Okay, so this next one is maps. Most people don't use their maps anymore because they have maps on their phone. So if you were to gather up your old maps, or maybe you could find some old maps at a thrift store, they would make a really great gift wrapping alternative. And this one has a nice little bow to dress it up. Here are just some pretty basic presents wrapped in wrapping paper. In my family, my husband and I have been doing alternative gift wrap for about 15 years. And he likes to save the newspaper ads that he thinks will make good wrapping paper, and he sets them aside. And he always takes the ads that he thinks are really great, and he puts them at the center. And sometimes they can be a little bit creepy or weird, and you think, this isn't in the holiday spirit, but it's kind of, one of his things. And, with gift wrap, I think, with alternative gift wrap, I think it's kind of cool when you can come up with kind of these little family things. So that's one of our little family things. I found this example on the internet, and it is just beautiful. You can see they've started with butcher paper, or maybe it's shopping bags that they're trying to upcycle or reuse. And they've added these colorful buttons, which look like they could be quite easily reused over and over again. Here's a really simple one. And here's a picture of my son from this last Christmas. And this is a fairly typical present in our house. The paper is from another delivery of presents or something like that. And we've reused it to wrap the paper. And then we have a whole collection of these ribbons that we use year after year. And this is my son again, the year before, 2018. And he's opening a present from his cousins, and they just took paper and they drew lots of beautiful pictures on it and wrapped it up in the paper. So that's a really nice way to do it too, if you can involve your kids, is that, they could even paint on the newspaper, or you could find old paper like this. I'm sure this paper was from another package that was delivered, and just has these really beautiful little things. And then you can save it if you want, kind of like a keepsake, or use it over and over again. And then furoshiki is the Japanese art of present wrapping. And as Amy said, I've been with Do It Green for about 6 years, and I have presented at the fair every year doing this gift wrap. And people always come up and watch it, are quite amazed at how easy it is. What it is it's usually just one piece of cloth, and you take a book or a box or even a wine bottle, and some of the wraps are quite simple, some of them are elaborate, but you do it a few times and you get the hang of it quite quickly. We have a video that I made that is an instructional video that will be going live on Sunday if you want to check that out. It has a lot of different ways to wrap presents, and there's lots of great ways. You can look that up online as well. One really simple way to do alternative gift wrap is just to save the wrapping paper that you are given from other people year after year. In my husband's family, my mother-in-law is the queen of saving wrapping paper, and we have pieces of wrapping paper that we joke are family heirlooms because they've been around since the 70s. Some of them look like they could be from that 70s show, but it's kind of fun too. That's kind of part of our family story too, is that we have these pieces of paper that we use year after year. And one of the things that we pride ourselves about at Do It Green is that we talk a lot about these personal choices that we can all make that add up to big results. And it's not just for us as individuals, it can also be for the people around us. When I started wrapping my presents in newspaper, in magazines, in maps, I think my family was kind of like, okay. But over the years, more and more people have taken to it. And the next slide is actually a picture a friend sent me after she'd seen the furoshiki demonstration. And she went out and bought holiday cloth so she could specifically use it year after year for her presents. Not this one, this one. And I just really love that. It shows that everything that we do has an impact on those around us, and we can all make a huge difference just by starting a new habit. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristine. So I plugged in on the discussion that her video will launch this Sunday morning. So you can check out how to do futoshiki with the square cloth. And there's also a downloadable handout that shows you different ways that you can wrap depending on the shape of the object. So try it out this year. So plug in your questions if you have any. And next up, we have Kim and Ashley from ZeroWasteWestMetro. They joined us last year and did an awesome display at the Live Gift Fair about the amount of waste that plastic utensils, disposable plastic utensils create. And they focus on zero waste, on all ways to reduce waste, including cooking, traveling, work, with family. They have both taken on personal challenges to reduce their household waste. And there are images, I don't know if you're going to share those today, that they've been able to reduce the amount of their household waste to just a small mason jar size, which is amazing. And they offer regular zero waste challenges on their Facebook page. So check them out and challenge yourself to some of their challenges. So take it away.
Amy. We're really happy to be here. We have a quick slideshow to show you. So let me share my screen with you. Share. Okay, can you see that? Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, good. Thumbs up. Okay. Okay. Go to the next. It's stuck. Hold on. Go to the next slide somehow. There we go. Okay. So zero waste is a lifestyle that produces little to no garbage. So some people like the terms like low waste or conscious living. We often use the term zero waste because it implies that there is always more to do to get closer to zero. Thea Johnson, who has written this book that there's a picture of, she coined the term zero waste 11 years ago.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
Your voice is a little bit muffled, so I'm not sure if it's covered by.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll come closer. Is it better when I come closer?
Yeah, right now when you're talking, it's great.
Okay. Okay. Should I start over?
Yeah, why don't you? That'd be great.
Okay, I'll start over. Okay, no problem. So zero waste is a lifestyle that produces no carbon. Oh, is it still muffled?
Yes.
Muffled. Weird. Okay. If I back up, does that sound better?
Yeah, we can hear you right now. Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. So, so we were saying that some people use the terms low waste or conscious living, and we use the term zero waste because we like that it implies that there's always a next step to get closer to zero. Thea Johnson had coined the term zero waste 11 years ago, and that sparked a global movement of personal responsibility around our waste. Everybody knows about reduce, reuse, recycle. So what sets zero waste apart is the first and last R's of refuse and rot, which rot refers to composting. Can you hear still? It's still good for volume?
It's a little muffled. Yeah, it kind of comes and goes. So.
Oh no. Okay. Well, let me know if you miss anything, okay? I'll go over it again. So basically, as an example, if you were to go to the grocery store and you want to get some apples, you refuse the ones prepackaged in a plastic bag and you bring your own produce bag instead, and that's using the refuse. Kim is going to go over a few things to do in the grocery store now.
Okay, can you hear me now? The first step for grocery store shopping is you want to shop in the bulk section first. So that's your rice, your pasta, your salad, your broccoli.
We can't hear that one either. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, you can? Okay. So you want to shop in the bulk section when you are able to. So you want to have, you want to shop for your rice, your oatmeal, your lettuce, and have that all be not in a package. And if there are some foods that you buy in a package, that's okay. But we always say there's always a better option. So for example, you want to have glass and metal and paper first, and then plastic. And the reason that is because glass can be recycled over and over, and same with metal. And paper can be recycled over and over until it can't, and then you can place that in the compost bin. The problem with plastic is it only can be downcycled, and plastic never goes away. So every bit of plastic ever invented is still around, and it's just in a different form. So for example, that plastic toothbrush breaks down into microplastics, and that ends up in your rivers, your lakes, your oceans. And then those microplastics break down to nanoplastics, which are in the air. So we're breathing in these nanoplastics. That they are in our lungs, they are in human poop, basically everywhere. And so back to kind of what Colleen was talking about, when I first started doing zero waste, I had a lot of food go bad because I was so used to having it stored in plastic. And obviously that's not a good thing to just throw out good food. And so I thought, I got to redo my whole storage. And so I thought, well, how can I do this? And then I thought, well, my grandma used to come from a generation where there was no plastic. So I gave her a call, and she told me how to store my food again. And so I learned that I need to put cilantro and parsley, kale, and broccoli in a jar of water. They're all flour, so think of it as it's just putting it in a vase. You want to put your carrots, your celery, you want to submerge those in water. You also want to shop palm oil free at the grocery store, as well as in your lotions and cosmetics and soap. And Do It Green this year, they have a lot of vendors, and a lot of those soap making, what are they called?
Yeah, local vendors.
Perfect. A lot of them have palm oil free soap. So yes, check them out.
Here's over to the holidays. Continue in the holidays with avoiding plastic. And being careful. So, if you do use a Christmas tree during the holidays, the best option is to have a real tree. The best option is going to a lot to cut your own.
It's hard to hear you again.
Oh no. Okay.
That's good
Okay.
right there.
There. Okay. I've got to find the right spot. Okay. So I think I've got it. So try to go for a real tree. Artificial tree, if you already have one, try to get at least 10 years out of it. And again, what Kristine was talking about with that packaging with the wrapping paper, it belongs in the garbage. So unless the wrapping paper specifies on it that it's recyclable, it does belong in the garbage. On the right are a picture of, I've made these sacks that my family uses every year. And there's a lot of creative ways to do gift wrapping.
Or not so creative. I'm not crafty.
Yeah. Okay, as far as holiday cards go, there are options. Kim has opted out of doing holiday cards, and she has asked all of her friends and family not to mail them to her, and she will receive text messages or emails with pictures of people's holiday cards. Yeah, I think you got one.
Just today.
Yeah, she got one earlier today. For myself, I've opted for, you want to avoid photo paper in holiday cards. That does belong in the trash as well. So using a cardstock instead. And we also use recycled paper, and we do it as a postcard instead. So it's also eliminating the envelope paper. Okay. So, and of course, during the holidays, it's easy to go a little crazy with overconsumption. So it's nice to give yourself a guide. I like to use this guide with my kids. It's something they want, something they need, something to wear, and something to read. And of course, you see there is plastic in there, but that's okay because it is limited. And that's something that they specifically wanted, so we know it will be valued. When it comes to adults in our life, it's nice to arrange holiday gift exchanges instead of gifting every person something separate. And I do this with my family. We do, there's a website called Elfster where you can put everybody's emails in, and it will automatically
email you who your Secret Santa person is, which is a nice feature. Let's see. And then finally, when you're thinking about what kind of gift to give people, of course, a experience gift is the first choice. You've got to get a little more creative with COVID with experience gifts, but there's a lot of options. Anything that decomposes, like wool, mittens, a bottle of wine, a bamboo toothbrush, honey, a homemade soap, those types of things. And that is all. I can stop presenting. Stop share. Okay. All right. So if anybody has questions, we'll hand it over to Amy.
Great, thank you. That covered kind of all different aspects of the holidays. Those are great tips, and you guys should check out Zero Waste West Metro's Facebook page because they constantly post tips too. I was wondering if you guys could talk really quickly about the issue about palm oil. Why would someone want to avoid palm oil?
Yeah, it's a long story, but basically the palm oil the plantations are not sustainable. You'll often see labeling that says sustainable palm oil on it, and unfortunately that is regulated by the palm oil industry, and they have now found that the existence of the round table for sustainable palm oil has not reduced deforestation, and it is also contributing to the extinction of many rainforest animals, especially orangutans. Right? I don't know if that kind of sums it up. Like a short answer.
Yeah, just a good basic introduction. There's is there any specific website someone might want to check out that has good information?
We
Or
have
just
some on our website, not on top of our head.
Yeah.
Videos on it. So we can
Okay, some on your Facebook page. You can do a search. Okay.
And
Okay, great.
organic palm oil is nothing either.
Yeah.
That
Just makes palm oil without pesticides. Yeah.
Let's see. So someone's asking, do you have any advice for convincing family members that you don't want more stuff? So I can concur with that too. I've sent out a few emails to family saying I would really love for you to donate to different organizations. Here's some options. But some people just love to give gifts. So do you have any suggestions?
We do. And
It's a little bit hard to hear still.
if you use a wish list, it helps to guide people. And so I do this with my kids because I can't tell grandparents they can't give them gifts. That's really not okay. So by helping to guide them, and also it's helped to suggest a lot of experience gifts like classes or Zoom memberships or things like that. Piano classes is one. It helps to just.
Great. Yeah, and sometimes, right, making a very specific list too, or even offering to buy the gift for grandparents so they don't have to go out and shop or do that extra work. Just offer to get the gift that you think will be a durable, high quality, long lasting, waste free gift for your kids, right? If they want to actually give a physical.
For adults, I have heard of people just saying, I just don't. So yeah, and then it's eliminates the question of how much do I give? What is that? Just not doing it.
Yeah. So another question, if anyone wants to answer, Kristine or Colleen, this might be a question for you, Colleen. Where are some stores that have a bulk section or selling fruits and vegetables without pre-packaging?
Definitely the co-ops have really good bulk sections. And some more kind of local, smaller type grocery stores have them. I know Fresh and Natural is another one. And I think more grocery stores are doing fruits and vegetables that don't come prepackaged and are okay with you bringing in. I know one of the, I think it was Kristine or maybe it was, that mentioned that you can bring in your own kind of cloth bag for putting them in that if you want to. They're not, a lot of those are done by weight, and so they, you know, they might not allow, sometimes they'll just take it out and put it on and weigh it without your bag on it, because your bag will be heavier than the plastic bag. And sometimes, you know, if it's too many people in line, they might just leave it on and you'll be charged probably a little bit more for it. But definitely a lot of grocery stores are going away from having fruits and vegetables prepackaged.
Great. Another suggestion is my boyfriend always tells people to just go out to dinner with him so he can spend time with them. And that's a great idea. So go out to your favorite restaurant together as your gift. I do that with my girlfriend. We take each other out to dinner for each other's birthdays. So that's really nice too. So great ideas. There's also a lot of good information on the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's website. doitgreen.org, our website, also has a lot of great information. You can search by topics. And then Zero Waste West Metro's Facebook page has a lot of great tips and ideas that come through there too. Another suggestion someone had, play family games instead of giving gifts. So that's great too. We have a few more minutes if you guys have more questions, but in the meantime, I'm gonna share. I don't have a nice slideshow like everybody else had, but I'm gonna share a couple of photos with you guys. So this is a great idea for grandparents. I like to kind of feature some of my kids' art that they've made at school or made at home, and you can get an old frame at Goodwill. And color copies work great if you still want to keep the original for yourself or for your kids' keepsake. And then making copies and putting them in kind of a fun frame. Another idea for kids, I love these kinds of gifts because they last forever. Anyone, any age can use them. Some nature ID books, some binoculars, magnifying glasses. My daughter was a detective for Halloween, so she used this magnifying glass for her Halloween costume this year. Let's see, I'm gonna show you guys one more. So my daughter and I actually made some holiday videos that are launching during the gifts fair this year. So you guys can check out the fair page, and some of the videos will launch each day. But we talked about harvesting plants and harvesting flower seeds and harvesting vegetable seeds. And here's a nice way to package them up and give them as gifts. So we've given these packs, seed packs, to my daughter and son's teachers every year for holiday gifts. And so we took a picture of what the plant looks like and made a just like a return label sheet that I just printed on my computer at home, and just has information about how to plant. And then this envelope is biodegradable, and it was pretty inexpensive. I got a pack of 50 online. And then giving a set of cloth reusable napkins. These are great. My mom made these, but you can find some really cute material and wrap it in nice twine and give them as gifts, and they will last forever. And then a nice way to spruce up gifts that you might be giving. It might be a little late now that we've had snow, but growing herbs indoors, and maybe you could clip a few and tie them onto your gift, and they might smell really nice too. And then my daughter and I learned how to make a bath salt mixture. So we got these bath salt bags that are reusable. So you can dip the whole bag into your bath, and then all the salt dissolves and the herbs stay in the bag, so it doesn't make your bath all full of lavender pieces in this case. And then you can wash and reuse the bag and put more herbs or more bath salts in there too. So those are just some of my ideas. And then I wanted to share with you guys today, we didn't get to make our nature mandala at the Midtown Global Market today, so this was in my backyard. and my family and I collected nature items, and this was a really fun activity. You can see the white dots around it was actually snow. And so this could be even a fun activity that you do with your family. Go outside, go for a hike, collect some nature items, and create some artwork together. And you could even take a picture of that and put it in a frame. So let's see, do we have any other questions before we finish up? Let's see, a general question for the gifts fair. Do we have to make an account to shop? So if you go to digmn.org, there's just a link and you can visit all the 60 different vendors, and they're offering discounts and specials between now and Sunday until 7 p.m. And if you want to bid on the silent auction, there's another link there. There's some silent auction items. That one you do have to create a free account. You just input some information. You don't have to put your credit card information in until you win an auction item. So you do have to create an account to be able to bid on something. Let's see, how do you compost in the winter? Do one of you guys want to share some tips and ideas from the presenters? Kim and Ashley?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you can still compost in the winter. I do backyard composting. It just goes at a slower rate. And then you can, I also live in St. Louis Park, so the city takes my compost, but I like to compost myself because I keep it with yeah, and it's just important to remember to empty the compost bin before the big freeze comes, because it will freeze. And so you just want to make sure you have enough room in there while it's frozen, and then once things thaw out again, it just melts to almost nothing. Yeah.
Colleen, were you gonna share something as well?
I was basically going to say the same thing, is that you can definitely add to your backyard compost bin all winter long. It doesn't get hot enough to actually really do a lot during the winter, but then as soon as the spring comes, it actually goes very quickly because there's a great amount of water in there and it'll heat up really quickly. So have patience over the winter because you will see great things in the spring.
Great. Colleen, do you want to answer this one too? Someone has a dog and it's hard to compost. I'm guessing the dog likes to find the scraps to eat.
I was going to guess the same thing. Yeah. That is a difficult one. I mean, any type of animal is going to be drawn to food. And so maybe it might not be the easiest thing for you. It might be the bin that you have, and maybe you just need to find a bin that will be harder for the animals to get into. Make sure that you're not putting meat scraps and other things that would, really entice animals to go for anything in your compost bin. But I know animals will even go after carrots and other things too. So it might not be that you're putting meat in there. So I think it's probably just a matter of finding a compost bin that is very difficult for a dog to get into, but knowing that they can dig, it just can be really hard. And maybe you ask your neighbor to take the compost bin and you bring your compost over to their yard or something like that.
Can I give a suggestion? I have a compost tumbler, so it's off the ground and it spins and it locks. So I think that might be a little harder for a dog. I don't know how big your dog is, but that might help.
That's a good idea. Yeah, one that's raised off the ground like a tumbler. And those are nice too because they expedite composting. You're able to spin it and it expedites the heat process and things break down faster, so you get your compost faster for gardening. Another idea might be to also check with your county to see if they collect waste scraps, and you can drop it off. They might have a drop-off site, or they might have a curbside collection as well. Looks like also we have one of our vendors on, and she's with ThreadStar, and she sells flannel hankies and towels that could also be used for gift wrap and small gifts. So great. Does anyone else have any questions, thoughts? ideas how you are able to reduce your holiday waste. We also have a new section on our webpage. So if you go to doitgreen.org and then you go to connect, there's a new addition since the fair. It's called a toolbox. And we have a lot of downloadables, and one of those is a home audit checklist, and it will take you through each room in your house and give you tips. One of them is focused on water, one is focused on waste reduction, and one is focused on energy use. So it takes you through each room and gives you a lot of inexpensive and easy ways that you can reduce your impact at home. Let's see, what time is it? 7:20. We have time for a few more questions. I think maybe a good discussion item for all of us presenters might be how do you make changes? How do you make all of these changes to reduce waste? Because it can take a lot of energy to get family on board who's not used to it. And it also takes, at first, until you get a new rhythm, it can take a lot more work to figure out how am I going to shop? What are my new food menu items going to be, so I don't buy things that are in plastic packaging waste? So does anybody have any tips they want to share on what helped them on their journey? Kristine or Colleen or Kim and Ashley, any success stories?
I can share one. I know somebody asked before, how can you get family members to stop purchasing gifts for you? And I have a mother-in-law who is one of those people who absolutely loves to give gifts. I mean, it brings her a lot of joy. And so she actually used to, every time we saw her, come with some type of gift. And it was not something that happened overnight. And it was a discussion that I had to think long and hard about how to broach with her, just because I didn't want her to be offended and I didn't want it to be something that took joy away from her. But I just let her know that gifts aren't really my thing, but if there is something else that the two of us really enjoy, maybe that could be something that brings both of us joy together. And it was a longer journey. I would say it took a couple years, but she started slowly and didn't come to our house every single time with a gift for us, and realized that it was going to be okay. And then eventually we got to the place where we did find things that we like to do together, gardening and going out and having lunch or having a cup of coffee together. And we realized that we're both much happier now that way than before. And so it wasn't something, I guess, that you should expect somebody else to change immediately for, but go on the journey with them, I guess.
That's a great tip. I mean, it does, every new lifestyle change you make takes some adjusting. So we often like to say that it's a journey, because you can't change everything all at once. It's a little stressful, especially if you have a family or other people who aren't on board. I also wanted to share that we have family meetings, and oftentimes we'll try to get the kids to share ideas of what they think would be helpful to make changes in, and then they're more on board with it than us just telling them what to do. So that's kind of a fun way to engage, by letting other people come up with the ideas too. Let's see, do we have a few other questions? Are there any ways to make a secondhand store wish list? That's a great idea. So asking someone to look for something that might be a used item, and where you might be able to find that, because not all secondhand stores carry the same kind of products. Are there any, do you guys know of any resources online that share what different secondhand stores tend to stock or focus on or have?
There's an organization called Reuse Minnesota, and they try to break down as best as they can, reuse stores in different counties or different cities. So you can go to their website oftentimes, and most of the metro counties also on their website. So Ramsey County, Hennepin County also have, Hennepin County is, it's choose to reuse, but some of the other counties also have something. Sometimes they also call it choose to reuse, but they have different listings of thrift stores as well. And Hannah, I absolutely love that idea, because not only then are you getting something that's of high quality from a used thrift store, but it usually then has somebody going to a thrift store that might not otherwise go into one, and it introduces them to the cool things that could be in those thrift stores. So I love that idea.
That's a great idea. And someone also mentioned, Anne mentioned gift cards. So you could ask for a gift card to a thrift store. So that's a great idea too. Yeah, and for kids, I like to, a lot of thrift stores will have a lot of sort of sewing or craft supplies. And it's kind of fun for kids to just get like a bin of different craft supplies, and maybe print off some craft ideas off the internet that kids could make or be creative with. So great. Well, any other questions? Otherwise, I think we might close up here unless Kristine or Colleen or Kim and Ashley have any last words of advice or anything to share. Great. Well, we wish you all a very low waste holidays, and thank you for joining us. And we have 2 more green coffee talks at 6:30 tomorrow and on Saturday. And then on Sunday at that same time, we have a youth story time where 3 youth will be reading some books. And then it will end with a dance party that you are all welcome to join. We have a DJ and lights and music. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. Thank you all for joining us. Take care.